Welcome to a compilation of 1 KNL hands from our Play and Explain episodes. Enjoy this longer video and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what was your favorite hand. King Jack off, going to be open from the cutoff. Top pair is pretty nice, a rainbow board. Probably going to start out with a small bet, assuming that our villain checks. Board pairing turn, so I want to be able to target their 8x, potentially get check raised by some straight draws, maybe backdoor flush draws. So I think on the board pairing turn, I'm actually going to bet half pot and go for probably an overbet on the river, on most rivers, I would imagine. Maybe not a flush completing river. I might size down to 75% or so, but yeah, just going to try to target their bluff catchers, potentially get raised on the turn. 5 of clubs, pretty clear run out. Going to be over betting for value. Villain donks a third, which is fairly unexpected. I don't think this is going to be a bluff that often. Probably something like blocking with 8-9, 7-8, maybe a 5 with diamonds, but gonna raise big and yeah, just target all their bluff catchers that are potentially blocking here. We have, you know, a lot of potential bluffs in our range, and villain pays us off, so happy day. So pocket 8 gonna be open from the cutoff. Big blind defends. Gonna be starting out with a big bet here. I think we can get called by many hands. Tray 4, just any 6, any 7. Pocket 4s, pocket 5s, probably any 3, and potentially hands like 9, 10, you know, gut shots plus overcards, maybe some, you know, backdoor flush draws with overcards. So have a large range of hands that can call that we're doing quite well against. King of spades on the turn. I'm not going to be betting 3 streets for value here. You know, we block the straight draws, so 8, 9, and 8, 10. So villains gonna have fewer straight draws to call us with. Jack of hearts on the turn. Facing bet, we probably polarize. Facing an overbet, just folding the river again. Like, we block their straight draws, so it's hard for them to have a ton of natural bluffs. They probably need to be turning a pair into a bluff with their overbet, and I just don't think they're doing that often. So yeah, 3-betting the 10s here, facing a cutoff open. We'll certainly be calling the jam if the big blind does put in their $269. It's a nice amount of dollars. So the cutoff calls, ace 8-5 rainbow. I think this is a board where we could bet. Our hand does want to deny some equity from their Broadway hands, king, queen jack, queen jack, those types of hands. So we could start out with a third here. We could also check. I think that I'm going to lean towards checking back and try to play turns and rivers pretty accordingly. 5 pairing on the turn doesn't really change very much. I guess villains may have some like 5-6 suited, 4-5 suited, but shouldn't really do very much for them. So if villain does bet, we will be calling. If villain checks, we're probably going to be betting like a third and then check back river. Seems fairly reasonable. Get some value from 8x and their pocket pairs. So yeah, facing 75% or whatever, we're gonna be calling. 7 of spades on the river. Because we check back some ace king, ace queens, ace jacks, ace 10s, maybe some like ace 3, ace deuce, we do have a fair amount of ace x in our check back range. So I don't necessarily know that we need to call a bet, but villain checks and don't have to make that decision. So there we go. Opening ace 8 of spades from the low jack. Have our white belt friend who decides to tag along from the button. We'll probably be calling if one of the blinds squeezes and hoping our friend joins us, but instead we'll just flop top pair, top kicker, and start out by betting a third. I think villain's going to call pretty wide. They will fold very, very few hands here facing a third, so I'm going to start with a third, and then I'm going to have a lot of options on the turn in the river. 10 of diamonds. I think I'm going to check and start calling. If villain checks behind, then we'll certainly be placing a value bet. Now we're just going to call with our 8 and pretty much call most bets villain makes on the river if villain does go ahead and bet. Villain declines and we take it down. Opening 8s from the cutoff. We will be calling that 3-bet, assuming the 6 seat doesn't give us the old cold 4. All right. 8, please. I guess it's second best thing. We have a gut shot with our pair, so 9-7-5. Certainly we'll be calling a bet. Now we have a double gut shot, so a 6 or a 10 gives us a straight. Facing delayed over bet is a pretty rare line, but because we have a pair double gut shot, we can't really fold. Rivering a straight is nice, so now we just hope they put the rest of the money in the middle. Trying to target queen jack, but they check behind, so say love you. Opening 2 kings from the low jack. Getting 3-bet versus the cutoff at 150 bigs. We shall be 4-betting our kings, assuming that the blinds fold. All right, so going to be 4-betting to 23 big blinds, 230 doll hairs. If villain 4 bets or 5 bets, we shall get it in. Not the 5-bet size we're looking for, but it is what it is. Can't even hit a diamond, huh? Opening jack 10 of clubs. We have potentially another white belt who posted in the cutoff. Don't know many regs that post in the cutoff. If you're such a reg, I guess let me know in the comments. The 4-seat squeezes. We shall defend. They do not squeeze, they opt to flat. Flopping an open ender, overcards, backdoor flush draw. This is quite a nice board. 3 ways. Not going to be betting a ton, but this hand just very naturally falls into hands that, I'm going to be betting. If I'm betting like aces, if I'm betting maybe a set of 8s, then need some of these hands to balance out my range. So jack 10 of clubs is just fits nicely. Can get it in with a 2-seat. Not really much bad can happen with this specific combo. Villain tank puts in the raise. Again, pretty easy call. Going to be calling most bets that villain makes here on the turn with our open ender. Pretty unlikely they have backdoor diamonds, so I think even the queen of diamonds and the 7 of diamonds is going to be obviously pretty good for us, and we'll have pretty much the nuts. Half pot is, yeah, just the slammiest slam dunk call of them all. Alas, no 7, no queen. Man, if villain checks, then, man, if we bet, what would we be targeting, like queen jack, something like that? I don't expect them to check very much. And there you go. They bet a third. Nothing we can do, but try to hit next time. King 9 of spades from the hijack. Our white belt friend calls. That's nice. Please don't jam, Mr. Two-Seat. Our white belt friend and the 3-seed calls too. If the 4-seed squeezes, we will almost certainly be calling the squeeze. That is a straight flush draw. That makes me almost as happy as flopping trips. So checking range, and now we'll start betting the turn, betting half pot 3 ways. Maybe a queen of spades action? That'd be not the worst. 6 of diamonds, not so great. I do think that we need to bluff with our king 9 of spades. We lose to some of the, nut flush draws, some of like king queen. If they don't bet those on the turn, maybe like a 5 that they have, or pocket 7s or pocket 8s or some kind of 10. So basically targeting everything that isn't top pair, and gonna size accordingly with 2x pot to try to make sure that it gets the job done, and it did get the job done. Ace king of spades in the small blind facing a button open. If they 4-bet, we go on a 5-bet. Top pair, top kicker. Gonna start out with a small bet here on ace high. Once villain calls on the 4, I think, clearly we could go 3 streets for value, but gonna check the turn and decide on river. 6 of hearts. I think I'm going to check the river too. I think their ace X that I would be targeting with a bet, probably going to value bet themselves. So would rather go for a check raise here, and it's going to kind of depend on the size that they use. If they bet like over bet, then I'm probably not going to check jam. If they bet 75% or less, that's really yeah, I think only a6 is what I'm worried about. So yeah, just gonna check jam here and target their ace X and hope to get the crying call. Not the crying call kind of day. Queens on the button. Facing 3-bet, I believe that we are just going to call this one. Sort of a dicey board, deuce, straight 4. All of their ace jack, ace king, ace 10s. Those hands have quite a bit of equity, actually. They, like a hand like ace king is going to have 10 outs, so like 40%. Ace jack's going to have around 30%. So I believe that we're just going to start by raising the flop and attempting to play for all the money if villain has a hand like ace jack of hearts, as well as potentially getting value from their worse overpairs, 7s through jacks. If they have aces or kings, then obviously We're in Bone City. They have ace-5. It's not so great, but I think there's plenty that we can get value from. And yeah, just going to raise and try to play for all the chippies here. The villain does not want to play for all the chippies. Queen Jack of Spades. Pretty hand. Our white belt friend goes ahead and squeezes. We shall not be deterred. Top pair is not the worst. We have a backdoor flush draw as well, which is also not the worst. So certainly we'll be continuing, and certainly we'll be continuing facing such a small bet. Turning the backdoor flush draw. Now we get to call facing turn bets. Villain checks. We're going to check behind, try to realize our equity. We can still, put all the money in if we do make a backdoor flush. And now we just get to go ahead and call this, whatever it is, 60% pot size bet on the river. And lose to ace queen. Blind versus blind, going to be one of the worst hands that we start opening with. King 4, going to start out with a third. I find that villains are quite sticky in blind versus blind situations, so ace high, pretty good hand to bluff catch with. Turning an ace, pretty good. Facing 75% pot, going to be a pretty easy call. Villains kind of saying they've got a king or nothing. Trip kings makes it less likely they have a king, so pretty much calling any bet that they place here on the river, including 150%, and it's like kissing your sister. Pocket jacks in the small blind, going to be very easy 3-bet facing a button open. If the button 4-bets, we'll just be ramming and jamming it in. 8-6-4 rainbow, so I'm going to start out betting half pot. Villain shouldn't have any straights, shouldn't really have 2 pairs, so they may have some sets, but they also have a bunch of, pair plus draws, pocket 5s, pocket 7s, 6-7, 8-9, 7-8, maybe even 4-5 suited type hands. Then they're going to have some suited broadways with overcards. The 10 of clubs does give villain another set combo, so pocket 10s does put up a backdoor flush draw. My expectation is that villain's going to do a lot of checking behind here. We could have also bet the turn. I think betting the turn is somewhat reasonable here with our jacks, but checking and 10 pairing is quite nice. It does give 9-10 trips, which was a gut shot, and some of their backdoor flush draws. I guess they're diamond backdoor flush draws, trips. So yeah, gonna be betting for value here, targeting the range that I suspected they might have on the flop. The 8-9s, the pocket 7s, the pocket 5s, the 6-7s, the 7-8s, those pair plus draw type hands. I think they're gonna be pretty happy to bluff catch on this run out. I don't expect to get jammed on that frequently. Really tough for villain to have natural bluffs if they do jam. I think a hand like 6-7 pocket 7s, again, probably doesn't jam the river, they just call. So be in a pretty dicey spot if villain did go ahead and rip it in, which they did. So I think I'm just gonna fold. Really hard to find natural bluffs, as I said before. Right? I think if I could figure out more hands that villain could be bluffing with. If they're turning a pair into a bluff, then good for them. But yeah, nice hand. Pocket 10s versus my white belt friend. If the cutoff were the button 3-bets, this hand will fall into our cold 4-betting range. Ideally, though, we just battle against our friend. All right, bet, so 3-betting to 12 big blinds. Set is good. We have set. We have bet. So just getting value here from king, queen, ace, queen, any jack X, any pair plus draw, 7X, pocket 8s, pocket 9s, those types of hands. The turn puts up a double flush draw, the 4 of spades. I think that we could certainly bet the turn and jam the river, opting instead to go for a check raise. So now on the river, I think once the board pairs, all the draws brick, it's a matter of, checking to induce or targeting their pair plus draws and their jack X. And I think that targeting their jack X is just the way to go here, as well as their, 7-8, pocket 8s, pocket 9 type hands if they decide to hero call those, which sadly they do not. Ace 7 off, blind versus blind. Going to be defending, facing a small blind open. Flopping ace is good. Ace low, low. Not really sure what my expectation here is for villain. I think they, if they bet, we're just going to call. If they check, we're almost certainly going to be checking behind. I think it's hard to get 3 streets of value with our hand. So, yeah. Queen on the turn doesn't change a whole lot. If villain checks, we're going to start betting, targeting, queen jack, king queen, queen 10, maybe like pocket trays, pocket 5s, 4x, those types of hands I think is quite reasonable to target. Unsure whether or not I'm going to bet the river. I think some rivers I might bet and some rivers I'm probably going to check. If villain check raises here, well, thankfully he didn't. River's a 4 straight. This is a river that I just am not going to be able to bet. So if villain donks, I think we just fold. I can't really imagine many bluffs. I guess backdoor diamonds, it didn't bet the turn, but that's going to be probably a small part of their range. So yeah, facing check on the 4-liner. Just going to check behind and unfortunately lose a pot. Ace 7 of hearts, going to be raising it up from the cutoff. Flopping middle pair. I think we could bet, we could check. Probably going to be opting to check behind. Queen of diamonds on the turn. Doesn't change much. I guess they have queen jack, queen 10. That now gives them top pair. I still think they have more than a reasonable amount of low equity type hands that will place bets here on the turn. Jack 10, 9 10, jack 9, just squadoosh, ace 4, ace 3, facing a third, pretty much no brainer call. King of hearts on the river, so now our hand gets demoted to 4th pair. Facing a bet, I think it's a pretty easy call. Facing a check, I think it's gonna be probably too thin to bet for value. I think that I'm just going to check behind. I think villain's going to naturally check a bunch of their 8x, a bunch of their queen x, and my real target is deuce x. So, nice. They actually had a better hand. 6-4 diamonds facing a limp. Just going to be checking and hoping that we can realize some equity. Bottom 2 pair. Pretty nice. Pretty nice start. So, villain has 54.1 big blinds, so $541. We'll be planning on doing a lot of check raising here. Flush completer and gives me a boat, so really just trying to get villain to bet for some thin value so that we can go for a check raise and capture some bets from their bluffs, but unfortunately they just check it down and sadly we win the minimum with the boat. Opening blind versus blind here with the king deuce of hearts. Bottom pair on a paired board. Going to start out by betting a third and then pretty much hanging on for dear life. Okay, Now we're going to initiate hanging on for dear life mode. 7 of spades on the turn. I think that can give villain some gut shots like 9-10, 8-9 if they raise with some sort of backdoor gut shot, but they just check it down and we take it down. 6-8 of clubs, going to be opening on El Baton. Facing a 3-bet. I will be defending a 6 and an 8. And we'll be flopping not much of anything. Ace, King, Queen, not really a board that I'm going to get to stab that often. So just going to check back and hope to realize some equity, which we're a little bit of the way there. Villain bets half pot on the turn, so certainly going to be calling and playing rivers accordingly. The jack on the river. So we make a flush. I think this card is, it's great for our exact hand. I don't know how great it is for getting called. I don't think villain bets a bunch of like king 10 and queen 10 on the turn. We're really just kind of hoping they have ace 10. So I don't expect to get called that often, but we still have flush, so we're going to jam. Jack 10 off. Certainly good enough to call a raise with, blind versus blind. King 5 deuce, not flopping much of anything. I guess we do have backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw, so probably going to call a bet. Bet versus future checks, hope to realize some equity. If villain checks, I think we're going to check behind to once again realize some equity on the turn and go from there. Don't expect villain to check at a super high clip, though. I expect this board to be bet pretty heavily. Okay, so we turn a 9. 40% of the way there to our straight. Facing a third, pretty easy call. And the queen is pretty nice, so we do make our straight. And villain bets, so now we just get to raise and try to target a hand like potentially 2 pair or maybe a slow played set, something like that. I guess they could also just check like king jack, king 10, or king x, ace king, aces, those types of hands on the flop. So we do have a fair amount of hands that we can target with the river raise. Ain't getting called today. 7-4 of hearts. We shall check and realize our equity. And now we have a straight. That all happened very, very fast. So on the 4 straight, I don't expect villain to be betting their ace x now. So just going to bet big and bet big on the river. Target their, ace jacks, ace 9s, ace 8s, ace 7s, ace 6s, those types of hands that, check back the flop and go into bluff catch mode. Can we get called on the river today? I got a good feeling about this one. There we go. Kings is a good hand. We'll be 4-betting or 3-betting, depending on what everybody does. So certainly going to be 3-betting the low jack open with our 2 kings. Fill in 4 bets. We'll just be sticking her in. Ace high flop, not the exact flop we were looking for, but I do think we're going to start out with a c-bet. Just going to be c-betting most of my hands in this situation, and going really, really small, targeting, queens, jacks, 10s, 8, 9, heart type hands. We don't have a heart, so that's nice. And if villain calls the flop, then we will probably just start checking the turn, potentially block river, something along those lines. Did not expect to get raised on the flop and raise minimum. So getting an absurd price, I don't think I can fold yet. Having the king of spades is not super great. We block villain's flush draws. We have ace king, we have ace queen, we have ace jack. We have sets in our range. We have ace 10 suited probably, so I don't... Yeah, we're just going to fold facing a big bet. We don't need to go that low in our range to defend facing the turn big bet. And I don't know what villain had, but nice hand. Ace deuce of diamonds going to be 3-betting our white belt friends. Hopefully they don't jam. I would really like to see a flop with this hand. Okay, they didn't jam, but... And I guess we're going to see a flop. Not much going on there. Just going to check behind and hope to realize some equity. 5 is not really doing it, so just going to check again. 4 straight, probably okay to bluff. I think I'm just going to jam, target their ace queen, ace king type hands, their unpaired type hands. Wait. What just happened? Pocket 4s on the buttons, pretty easy open. Filling the 4 seat seems to be quite aggressive. This 3-bet will get called unless the 1 seat called 4 bets, but definitely going to be peeling here and then taking the flops as they come. Could just flop a set and make life easy. It's not a set, but I've seen much worse. Villain starts out with half. This is a slam dunk call with 4s with the 4 of hearts. Board pairing turn. We're going to have potentially some 5x, some flushes, some boats. I don't want to fold my hand. That's not that's not a great river. So now we don't have any showdown value versus like the ace of hearts or the king of hearts. Pretty sure we just have to bet. This is like the worst hand that we have here. We can't, like, we're gonna check back a 7. Probably checking back like the ace of hearts. Hey, there we go. We got it. 1 for the good guys. Didn't get there, but got there. 8 of hearts, heads up. Middle pairs, not so bad. Gonna do a lot of checking. You could make an argument for betting like a 3rd here, but gonna check behind. Ace on the turn is an interesting card. Villains bet 75%. I think there's a bunch of different ways that you could go. You could certainly call. I'm actually going to raise and try to get some value from their flush draws. I don't think they're going to bet 3-bet dry ace X. So I'm also trying to realize my equity. And yeah, there you go. Ace king on the button here. Excuse the background noise. There's somebody who's mowing the grass. Ace king. Good hand. Jack jack 8. I could bet a 3rd. I could check. I think checking lets me realize my equity more often and make it a showdown. Jack tripping is obviously good. Makes jack X less likely. Gonna go ahead and bet the turn. And this is actually a value bet. Hoping to get called by, villains ace highs. And we can do a lot of checking back on the river. Not this river. This river is pretty good. I don't think I should have a ton of king X in my range that doesn't bet the flop and, bet small on the turn. So, yeah, gonna go polarized. Overbet. I think villain has, villain could actually call this with ace high. I think that wouldn't be like the most unreasonable thing in the world. They could bluff catch with 8x. They could bluff catch with small pocket pairs that didn't probe the turn. So I think we do have like a decent target range here. Would be pretty sick if villain ripped. I don't know what they would rip. I guess like 9, 10, queen 10 type hand maybe. I don't think I can fold. Essentially only losing to quads. That's a rough one. Queen jack of hearts in the big blind. I could call. I could 3-bet. Gonna opt to call. Flop a good hand. Do straight 4. I think this is a donkable board, actually. We have enough equity to continue facing the raise. I don't know that villains are going to raise a ton. We could actually bet 3-bet, honestly, and maybe should have considered that a little bit more deeply before just calling. The king. Now villains essentially repping like 2-pair plus, I think. The 6 should be better for me than them. We should have a bunch of like 4-5, 3-5 type hands, queen 5, king 5. I guess they just have 10-5 suited. Playing 3-handed here, jacks. Good enough to 3-bet. Facing a 4-bet, we would just call at this depth. King 10-7. Not the greatest, not the worst. I'm going to start out with a 3rd here on king high. Then do a lot of checking on turns, honestly. I think if we got raised on the flop, we probably just fold our jacks. We block some of their better raises. Yeah, it could definitely value bet, but I think I should value bet, honestly, looking at it. Should have taken more time to act there. I think villain can bluff catch with a lot of their pairs, and I think they're going to have a lot of pairs that just check back. So yeah, it's a little too defensive, I think. White bell to opening with the 7s, gonna flat the small blind. Again, this is a don't try this at home type situation. Could certainly 3-bet, but you know, here facing the squeeze, it's actually not the end of the world. You know, we certainly are going to call facing the big blind squeeze. Another pair plus a flush draw, so pretty good. Now we turn a gut shot. I think villain can do a lot of checking back strong hands on the flop, but not really the turn. On the river, we're just targeting their like ace high, ace king high, ace queen high, ace jack high, and going with the, you know, a small size accordingly with our, you know, our small hand. Ace jack on the button. White belt caller from the small blind. 5, 6, 10. Yeah, not really a board I'm going to be c-betting. Turn king, we could c-bet with ace high, but we could also check and just beat their, okay, I guess, or we could just call and beat their, like, you know, their gut shots and their open enders. 7, 8 and 4, 3 if they have that, or I guess the 3 deuce. If they have the 3 deuce, they've got the 4, 3. 2 10s in the small blind. Good enough for a 3-bet. Some would say the 5th best hand in no limit Texas Hold'em. Fill in 4 bets, then we're just gonna jam. There's the 4-bet. So here comes the jam. That's a big, healthy 4-bet as well. 28 big blinds. Abnormal. Let's see if we can hold for a flip. One more. There we go. Jack 8 playing heads up, and we got some depth too. Facing a small 3-bet. This is, yeah, more than good enough to continue against. Top pair is good. Gut shot. Could bet, but I think I prefer checking with, you know, what is essentially top pair weak kicker. Turn ace is not great, so now we don't get to place a bet. Rivering 2 pair, we can bet versus check and call versus bet. Villain checked, so now we are going to bet and use a big size, and yeah, kind of hope to target villains like weak ace X, but I guess they just have weak nothing. 5 big blind open. That's a big open. Normally king queen would be a 3-bet here, but I think we're just gonna call, given the extra BBs villain stuck in. Half pot, top pair second kicker, not doing anything other than calling. If anything, you know, could consider raising and then checking turn, but calling is going to be the standard. Turn jack is not super I guess it's not super terrible. They still have like, you know, queen 10, ace queen, ace 10, clubs, diamonds. It's like the easiest call down in the world, and unfortunately they just had a good hand. 2 kings is nice. Maybe somebody will squeeze. We can get a 4-bet in. Please, 2-seat squeeze. Might also get a family pot. Family pot it is. 6-6 tray rainbow. Not super threatening. You know, the hands that villain has that are better than mine are substantially better than mine. The only real bad turn card is an ace. So yeah, just going to be checking range here and giving villains like queen jacks and jack 10s and those type of hands a chance to turn top pair. 2/3 bet into 4 ways is a little bit scary. I guess it's about 60% pot, but yeah, it's a little bit scary, and going to be continuing obviously, but a little tentative here. If villain starts, you know, pumping in tons of money on the turn of the river. Okay, well, turn check through. Yeah, still checking river actually. Gonna try, so was trying to get a bet out of like 7s, like a worse hand value bet. Maybe I could even potentially raise, but I think that like my hand is fairly face up once, you know, I check call the big bet on the flop. So don't think they're checking back much 6x, but yeah, yeah, maybe I should just bet targeting 7s if they don't value bet thinly enough. It's another one that, yeah, maybe acted a little too fast. All right, maybe some redemption with these kings. Redemption incoming. Small blind flat. It's better than nothing. The board is not super conducive to redemption. I would say that this is almost anti-redemption in nature. We could make a royal, but still not strong enough to bet. We do not, alas, make a royal. I think checking down, we can certainly go for a small bet here for value, targeting queen x, 8x. You know, they're pocket pairs, those types of hands. But yeah, redemption, this was not. And I guess the cherry on the top of no redemption is, yeah, villain just doesn't put in a penny post flop, sadly. 6-7 of clubs, good enough for a 3-bet facing button open. Don't expect villain to fold a ton considering they're white belt, but gonna 3-bet anyway. Ace king tray, yeah, it's gonna bet half here. Gonna size up on the ace high board, essentially one and doneing it. I think that they'll continue with ace x, they'll continue with king x, they'll continue with, you know, their flush draws and their gut shots, but because I suspect they're calling quite wide, they just aren't going to have enough hands to defend facing the half pot. That, yeah, cool. Queen 9 suited, opening from the hijack. Maybe another family. No. Oh, that's good. Can't complain about trips. Checking range here, multi-way. Double flush draw, bunch of gut shots, bunch of open enders. If the 1-seed bets, I could actually. You could make an argument for raising here instead of calling, and perhaps, yeah, I think raising is just better now. Letting the 6-seed slide in there and realize their equity just seems quite bad. You know, 6-7 is dead on the turn because the 9 gives me a full house, but now just gonna size up 3 ways on the jack and hope that one villain calls. But yeah, I should just raise facing the half pot, turn bet, get value from villains like their flush draws. I guess the flip side of that is if villain like inappropriately bets an 8 on the turn and I call, then, you know, in this scenario, they can check and then I can value bet and they can potentially pay off. So that would be the silver lining to calling the turn. But I do think holistically that raise is going to outperform call. And maybe we can get a little no, it's not a redemptive day. Not a redemptive day.
This is Chasing Poker Greatness with your host, Brad Wilson. Coach Brad approved.